Just ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show, we are going to be talking about the Longhorns of Texas versus the Florida Gators. And this is the first time that Texas will have played in Gainesville in 85 years. Both teams are coming off of bye weeks, and Texas needed one to try to get its offense to going and working correctly. And Florida needed one to go on ahead and reset after losses and losses and losses. We will be joined by Graham Hall of 247 Sports the Gators and a beat writer from the Texas Longhorns to preview Texas and Florida right now on this edition of the Stingray Show.
Hey, Stingray, Here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas. And that's what the Big 12 learned.
And with that, we want to welcome you inside the Thursday evening edition of the Stingray Show. Heath, Florida has another big-time matchup this weekend, and their backs are against the wall again.
Well, the dominoes have already started falling. We've had one firing in the SEC. I don't completely agree with the trend that, we got to get out there and let everybody know that we're looking for a head coach, so we're going to fire our coach early. Yeah. In the world of social media, I mean, we all know that there's been a hot seat in Gainesville for years. So I'm not buying it. But, yeah, this game is not looking Stephen, preseason, we thought this game was going to be awesome. We thought DJ Lagway could maybe be a Heisman contender, and Billy Napier finally had it all together, and Arch Manning and all the Heisman hype that he got. And now this is like two ugly girls fighting.
Yeah. So we are going to begin this matchup with the Longhorns of Texas, and joining us is a reporter who covers the Texas Longhorns for Orangebloods. Please help us welcome to the Stingray Show, Anwar Richardson. Anwar, how are things with you in Austin, Texas? And let me also say, in the open, the guy who compared Texas to a stripper is a longtime cover of the Aggies. So that was Old Buchanan from Texags.
Well, I mean, I've had some fun at strip clubs, so I don't know about him. So I mean, it's been a while since I've been to one, but I had some good memories from them. So that sounds like a guy who left with less money than he started, and a way more disappointments because Lexus or Starlet or whatever her name was, disappointed him. But it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. I would love to see the equation of being an Aggies fan, if that's what it's like being a Texas fan, because the Aggies had way more disappointments. But
Steven, I'm marking off Shake House on my bingo card right now for the week. So, all right, we got strip club we can mark off on the bingo card.
Hey, you guys put it in the intro. Yes. I'm rolling with it.
So, Anwar, how were things in Austin, Texas? Because we all heard off-season about Arch Manning, and I would argue that for the first month of the season, his performance was underwhelming, to say the least.
I don't think there would be an argument against you. You don't have to argue. Like he played in 4 games. 3 out of the 4 were bad. Not good performances. The Ohio State performance was bad, but you could tell yourself and try to rationalize to yourself, okay, you're playing and defending national champions. You're in their house. Okay, maybe that explains why it's bad. But surely the following week when you play San Jose State, you get back on the horse, you go ahead, you smash them, you kind of do what you do. And the next thing you know, he's playing in the fourth quarter versus San Jose State because it's just not good enough. The offense isn't good enough. You can tell yourself, all right, well, the following week they've got UTEP. Come on, UTEP. Like that. All right, now you go ahead and curb stomp this team. You do what you do, and the next thing you know, you're not in a dogfight, but you're in a much closer game than you ever anticipated. And the offense isn't clicking once again. So now you're telling yourself, like, wait, okay, my mama used to say, once is an accident, twice is a habit. And so now you get to a point where it's like, okay, wait. Now I'm starting to see a trend. So now you've got Sam Houston State that comes along, and okay, he plays better, but you can't ignore the other 3 games that you saw. Like it would be almost criminal of sports malpractice, but to ignore it, right? And so now you go into this Florida game, and you got to tell yourself, okay, he hasn't really played well, and we're just being quite honest with you. If you go back to last season, really wasn't that overwhelmingly good enough for people to put all this hype and expectations on him. He comes into the game versus UTSA when Quinn Ewers gets hurt. He has a really good game, but then he plays against La Monroe, and the numbers, he throws 2 interceptions. It's an okay game. He plays much better against Mississippi State the following week. But the body of work that you've seen with those games last year, the games this year, they haven't been well. They haven't lived up to the hype. They haven't lived up to the Heisman talk and the Heisman belief. Now, if you're Texas, what you tell yourself is this: at the end of the day, we're still 3-1. We're still ranked in the top 10. We still have a chance to make the playoffs. And so, look, you've got some teams that might be willing to lay down for you. Florida is in that teetering into balance. Like there's a thing where, I've talked to a lot of people in Gainesville, if things go bad in the first quarter or two, the Boo Birds are going to be out in Florida, right? So you have that. You've got Oklahoma the following week, right? And so John Mateer, will he play? Will he not play, right? If he doesn't play, all of a sudden you may have had 2 teams, if you're Texas, that lay down for you. And then you just kind of go through the list. Hell, Arkansas fired their coach, right? So, they've got a pathway in front of them. So if you're Texas, you just tell yourself, well, we just need you don't need him to be great. You need him to be good. Like that's got to be your goal. Your goal isn't to get him to New York this year. That's not going to happen. Your goal is just for him to be good. Can it just be what Quinn Ewers was for you last few years? Wasn't great. He was just good. If you can get him to good with this defense, that as a Texas fan, you can tell yourself, all right, we have a chance to still, make it to the SEC championship and make it to the playoffs. But the goal has to be to go from bad to good. That's when it starts from this week. The thing is, what we don't know is that going against a team like Florida that has a really, really good defense, not a great offense, what will he do and how will he react when the bullets start flying again?
Anwar Richardson is our guest here on the Stingray Show tonight. Anwar, the one thing that caught my eye this morning, and I was shocked when I was doing a little bit of research for the show, and I was blown away by this. The third down rankings for both of these offenses is horrendously bad. Texas is ranked 100.
Have you looked at 4th down by any chance?
No, I haven't. But third down, Texas is 103rd, and Florida is 123rd. What is going on 3rd down? You could talk about 4th down after 3rd down, but what's going on 3rd down?
I mean, 3rd down is it's the problems happen, which is basically Texas gets into 3rd and predictable a lot. So a couple of things that have happened is, if you look at their penalties and see where they are, their penalties add up pretty quickly. And they've been talking about trying to knock that down, but so you have the penalties. The run game has not been a factor for this team this year. They've had CJ Baxter, Trey Wisner as their kind of lead backs. Both of those guys have somewhere around 100 yards rushing. Now, they have been hurt the past couple of games, both of those guys, but the run game has been pretty non-existent, quite honest with you. CJ Baxter was listed as doubtful in this week's SEC injury report, so which means they have to lean on Trey Weiser. So you don't have a run game, you've got penalties, and now you're in third and obvious. And now when you get in third and obvious, that's where Texas has been struggling, a lot, and they have not been able to really move the ball effectively on first down and second downs. They've had some injuries as well, but I still say at the end of the day, the thing that concerns me about it, as you talk about it, is that if you told me it was like this and we were 4 games into SEC play, I can say, whoa, it's happening against top teams, elite teams. Right. If you're telling me this is 4 games and 3 of these teams are non-Power 4 teams,
right?
That's the concern for me. It's like, again, now what happens when you start playing just decent SEC teams? We haven't even gotten into the good ones yet, but Florida is just a decent team, right? What happens the following week versus Oklahoma and what that looks like against that defense? What does it look like against Kentucky or Mississippi State, right? And then they go back and they have Vanderbilt after that. They got a bye, and then they go to Georgia, right? So what does it look like against those teams? That's my thing. So the main thing has been lack of a run game. They've had some penalties, and now you get in third and obvious. And when you're in third and obvious, like it's, a lot of time that's dealer's choice for a defense.
All right. Let's talk about one of the positives for the Texas Longhorns through the first month of the season, and that's on the other side of the football, that incredible defense. Talk about what you have seen from this Texas Longhorn defense, please.
Well, that is the positive, when you look at it, and that's the thing. Like, look, it's interesting that Steve Sarkisian is known as an offensive guy, but the thing that has really been the cornerstone of his teams the past couple of seasons has been defense. And ironically, we have more questions about the offense than we do about the defense. Like it's an interesting conundrum that they have there, but the defense has been really, really good. The defense has done what they need to do. They've only the most they've given up so far in a game has been 10. They go on the road to Ohio State. They only give up 7 points, right? So you get, again, the defense is doing what I would want the offense to do, which is play well and dominate, especially against the lesser opponents, right? They're getting the turnovers. And so they are able to, they've got athletes there. They're able to get to the football. It's hard now because one of the things Sark has talked about is that he says because they got edge rushers, he says you guys get rid of the ball pretty fast. I think he said UTEP got rid of the ball in less than 2 seconds on average. And so, their teams are doing their best to neutralize that. But it's hard to run against this team, because they've got some guys up front. They've got good linebackers, and they've got a really, really good secondary led by Michael Taft, the safety there. So the defense by PK has been kind of the cornerstone. The defense, when I look at this Florida team, I look at it as, DJ Lagway, can he figure out how to find any holes in this defense? Now, because the biggest concern for me about their defense is like anything in football, and you guys know this, as good as your defense is, and it may be, eventually, at some point, there's going to be one of those games where somebody just gets loose. And, and you're going to need your offense to come through for you, right? Georgia just experienced that the other week, right? And so for me, as good as this defense is, to tell me they're going to hold everybody to 7 or 10 points all year long, it's unrealistic. It's very unrealistic when you look at what lies ahead. When you look at the Mississippi States that lie ahead, look at Vanderbilt, who's putting up points, right? Or Georgia. So I think this defense is good. I think this defense is elite. But it won't mean much, and these guys will wear down if the offense doesn't come around. But the defense is the thing that they'll hang their hats on.
Yes.
I want to touch on offense very quickly again. Is it one of those things where we're hearing great things out of practice reports out of Arch Manning, and he's like, he's about to put it all together. He's about to piece it together. And once he does, he'll take off. or is it one of those things where we're hearing some negative things in our practice reports? And how much longer? How long is this leash? I mean, you got a senior quarterback, I believe, from Troy. There is the backup, but what's the timetable here?
The timetable is you can't bench Arch Manning. That's your table. So there is none. And what I mean by that is you got to think of the ramifications of that. The ramifications of saying I could not develop a Manning is a killer for Steve Sarkisian. Like you don't want that to be on your tombstone. Here lies Steve Sarkisian. I could not develop a Manning. Right. That's and you got to think of it also, Heath, along these lines. He benched Quinn Ewers against Georgia last year, and because he wasn't playing well. Now Arch comes in. Arch doesn't really do much better, and so then Quinn comes back in. If you have to go back-to-back years with benching starting quarterbacks, it's not really good for you, especially your reputation as a quarterback developer. And by the way, Steve Sarkisian, he's flirting very dangerously with the "what have you done for me lately" line as relates to quarterback play. Because the Carson Palmer thing, that's a long time ago, right? And that's under Pete Carroll, okay? And then yes, what you did under Nick Saban, but again, you were not the head guy. So it's more about, okay, well, what have you done at Texas? Well, you had Casey Thompson, who you got here, didn't really do much. You had Hudson Card, who was your quarterback. He didn't do much. You had Malik Murphy, who was a backup. He transfers out. He hasn't done much as well. Then you had Quinn Ewers, who came in. He was your starter for 3 seasons. He ends up being a 7th-round pick, former 5-star. And now your whole thing has been, hey, Quinn Ewers is who he is, but Arch is going to be the guy that takes us to the promised land. And so now, if after 3 seasons, 2 years as a backup, 1 year as a starter, if you have to pull the plug on that, it's a huge indictment. Like it doesn't go over well. It doesn't put you maybe in the quote unquote hot seat, but it starts to warm it up. So I don't think no matter what, unless there's an injury, you cannot do that. And the second thing is, if you do that, now you're in the A block of First Take, right? You're in the A block of every sports show that has to say Arch Manning got benched. And so now you've got to deal with, you feel like your quarterback's mental state is kind of fragile as it is. You've said that this thing is kind of mental with him as opposed to physical. Now you bench him, like,
yes.
Like,
see, I see it the other side though. I see it as, am I going to let Arch Manning sink my resume and fire me from this job?
Yes.
That's what I'm seeing. Like, Arch Manning is not bigger than Texas football. He is not bigger than the Longhorn Nation. We cannot be held hostage by one kid just because of the last name on his jersey and he's not developing. I've got to put the best 11 out there for offense. If I'm a head coach, you got to put the best 11 out there. And if that means, hey, look, you got to get your head out of your butt, you got to kick it into gear. We're going to bench you for a quarter because, you're 2 for 13 throwing the ball here in the first half. We're going to bench you third quarter, so see what comes on. And then, give the ball back to him. I'm not saying benching for a whole game. I'm not saying maybe that is the case. I don't know. But I just think that to get his attention, like, you're flirting with fire. You've got to get going. I can't keep doing this with you.
Yeah.
You've got to get your butt on the bench, get your head out of your butt, and get us going. If you can't do that, you're no longer the quarterback here at Texas, because
you could do that for anybody else whose last name is not Manning.
See, I disagree with that.
I just think that the Manning is the ace of the whole thing, right? It's the ace because he was the most popular backup quarterback for the last couple of years, right? He is the guy that everybody has been waiting to see. He's arguably the most popular name in all of college football. Even though he hasn't played bad, your average fan knows who Arch Manning is. Your average fan may not know who the Vanderbilt quarterback is. The average fan may not know who Mateer is, but everyone knows who Arch Manning is. And so while I hear what you're saying, if you're Steve Sarkisian, again, my reputation is I build quarterbacks. That's what I do.
Right.
It's hard to bench that guy and say, well, 2 straight years, I've had guys I've had to bench. At some point, people kind of start looking at you. And then again, I still say, if you bench Manning, you have to be the person that admits in 3 seasons, I couldn't develop a Manning. Is it Arch or is it me? But at some point, when you start looking at the resume, people are going to say, you know what, kind of might be you. And because of that, that's why I think he would go down with that ship unless there is a injury that, oh man, I don't know if he can come back in, and you can kind of go under that, guys. But when he benched Quinn Ewers last year, it's kind of almost like he instantly regretted it.
Right.
Like he instantly regretted having to answer the questions about it. He regretted that how it affected Quinn's mentality. And Sark is a former quarterback as well. So sometimes that mentality is you just got to play through it. I think there's just too much. If you bench him for Matthew Caldwell from Troy, it's just such a bad look. I just think you have to see it through. You got to hope that he snaps out of it and he plays better.
I'm from the old school. And Steve Spurrier used to bench Heisman leading, candidates, his quarterbacks, like every other game. Like that was not a big deal for Spurrier to do that. Spurrier would sometimes roll out 3 different quarterbacks on the same series. One guy's 8 for 11, and he's like, well, he's missed the last 2 receivers. I got to chew his butt. And that's not the same. But Steve Spurrier.
You're also talking about a pre-NIL era as well. So you're also talking about an era of football where kids got paid, but it was under the table. But we're not talking about boosters shelling out millions of dollars. At that point, as Sark, you've got to answer to the people who are funding the program and say, wait. Why are we giving this guy millions upon millions of dollars and you haven't done your part? We've done our part as boosters. We have raised $30 million, whatever the money is, $40 million. Like Texas has money. We've raised all the money. We've done our part. What about you? And when the answer is, well, we just got to find somebody else. No. Why have you not developed it? Because these coaches have to answer to the money people now. So it's not just answering the fans.
What question would you rather answer? Why haven't you developed a Manning, or why are we losing games? And I think that's where this one boils down to. I think that
you only lost 1 game. You haven't
yet. But I mean, if you had to guess right now, is Texas going to make the playoffs? Because I'm leaning that they're not right now.
I mean, I see this probably today as a 9-3 team.
Right.
So that probably doesn't put them in the playoffs more than likely. I can foresee Georgia as a loss.
Yeah.
And I can foresee another program. Hell, Texas A&M is at the end of this year. They're playing extremely well. Again, I mentioned Vanderbilt. They could put up some points on you as well. I don't know what Mississippi State is or isn't. And John Mateer comes back next week. That's a kind of a game changer for me. If Arch is what we saw outside of Sam Houston State, if Arch is these guys in the SEC, they're going to lose a couple of games, like 100%. But I do think if you're Sark, what you can say is, hey, it's his first year as a starter. There was some growing pains, and Sark has talked about that too. He's talked about that in press conferences this past week too. Like, hey, because Lagway is the same way, right? It's like DJ Lagway isn't playing well, and he was the number 1 quarterback in the country at one point, right? So I think you can spin it more so, hey, we were growing and learning with Arch, as opposed to, well, we just pulled the plug on him. I think that's the difficult part.
And that's actually a great point that you made right there at the very end. Pull the plug. I think benching him's not pulling the plug. I think benching him's getting his attention. Do you think benching him would lead to the majority there in Texas, whether that's decision makers or boosters, that you're pulling the plug on Arch? Because I wouldn't think that. I think it would be like Quinn Ewers last year.
I mean, the thing is, Quinn Ewers getting benched for Arch Manning is an acceptable transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Arch Manning getting benched for Matthew Caldwell, some dude from Troy, probably isn't on that level. You're talking about benching 1 5-star for 1 5-star, right? And so even if you talk about the Jalen Hurts benching for Tua, well, again, we're still talking about elite for elite. So you can almost rationalize that. But when you start going to elite to some dude from Troy, that part that's a tougher jump. That's a tougher jump.
I'll throw this out at you, and because I just thought about this. I'm 40 minutes from Oxford, Mississippi, from where I'm sitting. Look at Lane Kiffin, Austin Simmons. We've heard nothing but rave reviews out of this kid for the last 3 years. And what do? They bench this kid for a backup quarterback from Division II Ferris State, and the kid took off. And Ole Miss is looking great with the Ferris State quarterback. Now I know Ferris State is not as good a program as Troy, and I know that Austin Simmons doesn't have a name like Arch Manning, but it's working out for Ole Miss. So they're like, I'm not worried about the NIL. I'm worried about making the playoff.
Again, the difference between the two is that Texas has an elite defense, and if you're just trying to get them from bad to good, you can tell yourself that's an easier jump to make.
That is you're correct. You're correct.
As opposed to, and again, I'm saying good. I'm not saying Heisman. I'm not saying anything elite. I'm just saying good. If you get him from that jump and you tell yourself, okay, that's all it takes, and then we'll be fine. I think it's easier to stay the course with that, as opposed to, the benching and this and that. There's a part that you just, again, I think the ramifications for even benching him for a quarter are bigger in Texas and bigger for this program than it would be for Ole Miss or anybody else. Because again, you do that, Ole Miss, again, hasn't been the lead on First Take. Texas has, though, and Arch Manning was going into it, and Arch Manning was after Ohio State. So you also got to understand, like, these two things are different as far as the gravity of the situation. I think it's just, you could do it at other programs. It's just hard when you have the guy of guys who one person was saying was a generational talent beforehand. And when you do that, like, I just think, unfortunately, the same rules just don't apply.
Anwar, when we go to the matchup on Saturday, let's get off of Arch Manning for just a second. What concerns you the most about this Florida football team that could give Texas a little bit of concern?
Well, I think it starts with their defense, because if their defense plays well, and they overall have played well, they're not good at getting to the football from a sack perspective. They only have 3 sacks this season, but if they can go and get some turnovers and shorten the field for Florida, I think that's kind of a concern there. And then, look, I think it's hard for me because Lagway and Arch are somewhat similar in profile. But I think for me, the thing is with Lagway is that, at some point he can turn it on. We saw what it looked like last year. Again, not saying he was great towards last year, but he is the reason why Florida ended up turning their season around. Yeah. And so the thing is so if Lagway can just suddenly get hot and all of a sudden, and again, I still will go back to, it's hard for a defense to be elite every single week. Then all of a sudden they've got athletes. Like that's not the problem with Florida. Like they recruit well. They have athletes who are there. So my thing is, if Lagway all of a sudden gets hot with some of those receivers that they have, with a run game that could be explosive at times, then all of a sudden I think there's a little bit of a change there for me. So it starts with the defense. If their defense can do, what Ohio State did, to a certain degree, and maybe it's not that good, but again, a variation of that. When then now all of a sudden they're holding Texas to 14 or 17 points. Now all of a sudden you're telling your offense, look, we don't need you to score 45 for us to win this game. We just need you to get to that 20th march, and Mark and Will be all right. So I think it starts with that, and I think too, which is, I think the other thing too is with Florida, their wall is against the back. Their back is against the wall. Excuse me. And you've got Napier. I know that was a weird slip, but you got Napier, who if you're Napier, you wait. What's the word I want to look for? You go out every play that you can. I was about to say something like, I was going to say like you unload the magazine or unload, but I was like, I don't know if I can make gun references nowadays. Like I feel like I might get canceled for that. But you got it. If you're Napier, you got to tell yourself like, hey, we're throwing caution to the wind at this point. Like my job is on the line. You guys, your job is on the line. Why? Because you guys are NIL. You guys are getting paid. And I can't guarantee that the next coach is going to come in and want to pay you what you're getting paid now. So everybody's job's on the line at this point. And so if you're Napier, you're throwing everything at Texas that you can. You're trying to throw them off the best you can. And you're really trying to disrupt Arch Manning as best as you can, not letting him get comfortable. And you're looking at what other programs did. And you say, all right, we just got to do the same thing there. So those things, probably three things: defense, Lagway getting hot, and Napier being his back against the wall. Those are the things for me.
All right. So Texas is going to Gainesville for the first time in 85 years on Saturday. Anwar, how do you see it playing out? The Longhorns of Texas versus the Gators of Florida.
Well, I expect a low-scoring game. And I think the defenses are good enough where I think this is a low scoring game. Last time I checked, there's some possibility of rain in this game as well. Two quarterbacks that are kind of feeling their way through, I think. So I think Texas, just because of their defense, I think they pulled this out. But I think the score that I originally wrote down, I did a prediction the other day, and I think the score that I wrote down was like 20-13 is what I gave Texas the edge in this game. But look, man, I'll say this: I don't count Florida out. I'm not. I refuse to do so. Now, look, I went to USF, so as a Bulls fan who watched that entire game, hey, I was happy about that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to count Florida out at home back against the wall. But I will go Texas in this game. But I definitely know I think it's the first of many tough games to come for them.
Yes.
Interesting. I agree with you. I think this will be a low-scoring game. I don't know how low. I'm not into score predictions. But I do think it's going to be a good old rock fight. And I love bad weather football. So the rain coming in, is it just going to be a little shower to get the field wet? Is it going to be a monsoon? What are we looking at as far as weather?
Well, I gotta look it up. It was. I mean, first of all, one thing about Florida, it can rain at any point.
Oh
right?
yeah.
So I mean, it don't take much there. Saturday, I'm looking at it. It looks like there's 40% chance of rain. But I know that the team was talking about they've been kind of preparing for that as well. That possibility of rain and the anticipation of that. So, but like I said, I think low scoring, is probably where it's at. I don't see this. I haven't seen anything from either offense that makes me believe like, oh my gosh, like this team is just going to unload and you're just going to see 30 points or something tonight. There's nothing either offense has shown us that we should believe that's a potential outcome.
I'm going to say this just in case if I can predict the future, which I've rarely done, but I've done it a couple of times. Let's just pretend that it's a good old rock fight. It's midway through the second quarter. It might be still 0-0, 3-0. It doesn't matter who has the lead. And let's just say Arch Manning takes a sack. He hasn't looked good. He takes a sack. And randomly trainers run out in the field to check on him, and they bring in a quarterback. Do you ever see a situation where if he takes a hard hit, just a regular old sack, like, oh, we just took him out for precautionary reasons? and we're just getting. Well, we're going to get him back out there as soon as possible. Oh well, this quarterback had the hot hand. We just let him finish the drive. Finish the half quarter game, whatever it might be. Do you see a scenario like that at all?
Well, when I look at Texas's history, unfortunately, when it comes to quarterback injuries, that is a scenario. Quinn Ewers was hurt just about every year as a starter at Texas and missed games as a starter at Texas. Casey Thompson, who I mentioned, was hurt as well. He had a thumb that was swollen to the size of my head, seemingly. I know Hudson Card was hurt before that. Sam Ehlinger battled injuries as a Texas quarterback. So does Shane Buechele, Tyrone Swoops. I've done it. I've done the math on this. David Ash, who was a quarterback there, had brain injuries. Some people call them concussions. I call them brain injuries because I think concussion's too soft of a word. It really goes back to McCoy.
Yeah.
With injuries to quarterbacks. So if it's a legit injury, yes. Now, if what you're trying to say is, could he get banged up, and if Caldwell is getting hot, could Steve stay with him? Sure, I can see that. I can see him staying with him for a little bit. First 3 and out, though, dude's on the bench. But I also would see that, at some point, it's Arch's team. It's
Yes.
no matter. It's Arch's team, and I don't think Steve Sarkisian has done way too much and recruited way too much to basically allow somebody else to upend Arch. So I think this is Arch's team, and I think it'll be Arch's team. And if he's banged up, when he's good enough to come back in, he'll come back in.
Okay.
And Anwar, real quick, where did you play college football? Because I saw that you had an incredible NFL career.
Oh, what? No. I covered the NFL because so I covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a number of years. So I covered the Bucs when Dungy was there, John Gruden was there, Raheem Morris was there. I covered the Detroit Lions. And that's where I became an NFL Hall of Fame voter when I worked there. And then I worked for Yahoo covering the entire NFL for a couple of years as well. And then some crazy guy in Texas called me and asked me if I wanted to cover Texas. And I told him no, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept bothering me. And finally, here I am over 10 years later. So life happens.
Our story's all about stories. What is your best John Gruden story?
Oh my gosh, John Gruden.
Tell us something funny that'll make everybody laugh.
Oh, I don't have one that'll make everyone laugh. I don't think you gotta. That's on the spot. I don't necessarily know if I've got a great John Gruden story. I'll probably think of it later, but I'll be honest with you, John Gruden has been so many years ago that I can't. I don't have a good one, unfortunately. I don't have a good one about any of them.
Anwar, look, man, this has been a blast. Thank you for taking time to give us your insight about Texas and Arch Manning. Good luck if you're going to Gainesville to cover that game, and we would love to catch up with you later on to continue our talks of the Longhorns of Texas.
All right, guys, I'll be there in Gainesville this weekend, and have me back on whenever you want. You guys take care.
Check out Sonny's while you're down there. Good stuff.
All right.
Hook 'em. Let's go. All right, so that is going to wrap up the Texas side of this matchup. Graham Hall of 247 The Gators is on deck to join us to talk about this game from the home team, which is the Florida Gators. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show, and we will be right back.